Have you ever dreamed of hitting the open road and finding out where it takes you?
Hey, I'm Bill Clevlen from BillOnTheRoad.com, and today I'm exploring Southwest Illinois' great rivers and routes.
St. Louis-based travel writer Bill Clevlen gets to do it for a living, but it wasn't something he dreamed of doing.
I did not get a driver's license until I was like 19 years old. Seriously, I always hated to drive. Never in a million years would I imagine that this is what I would be doing.
Bill's journey to becoming a travel writer was a bit of a bumpy ride. He wanted to be in show business, but settled in radio. It was the purchase of a new car which steered him towards taking short road trips and led him to share his experiences online. His dry wit can be seen in his writings and videos, like this one, shot with a fellow travel journalist during the 2020 COVID quarantine.
I'm watching you live. I just had a few notes for you.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. That's a great place.
Sorry, closed.
Wrigley Field.
Nope, closed.
Hoover Dam.
Closed.
Space Needle.
Also closed.
Liberty Bell.
Closed.
Okay, I know. My hometown of St. Louis, the Gateway Arch. That's gotta be.
Okay, that one's open.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
wait, never mind, it's closed.
Oh, son of a.
Happy Travel and Tourism Week.
I love when people ask me about my favorites for travel stuff. My favorite place is always the place where I happen to be at a particular point in time.
Bill would likely recommend your first stop in planning a road trip is to visit his website, BillOnTheRoad.com. From the top 20 road trips from St. Louis to how to tour the White House, traveling the Grand Canyon safely, to 5 quirky places to sleep in the Midwest, a novice or seasoned traveler will find Bill's tips and reviews.
And so people go there and they look and they get hopefully good ideas, suggestions for places to go that aren't too far from St. Louis, but I do travel all over the country.
Bill's compiled some of his writings into 4 books, including the popular travel guide, 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die. His latest is Finding the American Dream, a guided tour of places where Americans changed history. Tired of negative news, Bill chronicles the success stories of famous Americans from their humble beginnings.
As I've traveled around the country, I've been inspired by rags to riches stories that prove anyone in America can achieve greatness. Dreamers have come from every state, launching careers in smoke-filled honky-tonks, one-bedroom shacks, laboratories, cluttered garages, and yes, even along bumpy gravel roads in the middle of nowhere. Some sacrificed their lives, risked arrest, or faced impossible odds to achieve greatness.
Well, Bill Clevlen, welcome, and you had a short journey as a travel writer to get here.
Yeah, a quick commute. I always enjoy that.
Well, we're glad to have you in our studios, our HEC studios, because we've been doing everything virtually. But being a local citizen, a local writer, we're so pleased to be able to space this out and be COVID proper for this interview. So thank you so much.
And thanks for not putting plexiglass in between us. That was a nice touch. Thank you.
Yes, of course not. So has living in the Midwest been a good stepping off point as you started your career as a travel writer?
Yeah, because being in St. Louis, you are pretty much obviously in the middle of the country, and we're so fortunate that pretty much in any direction you go, you can find some really cool things around the Midwest. So I always tell people within a 6-hour drive in any direction, you can go to all kinds of great destinations. Whether you're going and a lot of places that you may not even think about and aren't on your radar. Little Rock, Arkansas. Is a great one. That's a place a lot of people don't think about. That's a 6-hour drive from St. Louis. You can go to Memphis. We always love Kansas City, Chicago. You can Milwaukee. There's just so many great destinations you can go to. Right from here in St. Louis, and for what I do, which is mostly road trips, it's perfect, the perfect launching pad.
Right. So I want to go back a little bit in your background. You started barely out of your teens in radio as a disc jockey and doing all sorts of things behind the scenes as well. Did the isolation of being in a studio trigger your wanderlust?
No, I hated, it's so funny now because I hated to drive. I did not get a driver's license until I was like 19 years old. Seriously, I always hated to drive. Never in a million years would I imagine that this is what I would be doing. And it's just one of those things that just sort of happened. Other things that I wanted to do in life, what I wanted to do really when I was young, I wanted to be a talk show, like a Johnny Carson type of host. And you and I have known each other for a long time, so I always wanted to do that. And it didn't work out, and that's fine. And, with this new book that I have out, it's about finding the American dream, and one of the things I write about, some of the people I write about are they tried certain things and they failed, and as a result of them failing, they found what they're good at and they found success. So that's kind of how I got to where I am now. I tried certain things, it didn't really work out, but this did work out, and it's just so funny. Back to you talking about wanderlust. I bought a new car. This is not a joke. The first new car that I purchased was an SUV. I always had, old sedans and different things like that. And I'm a vertically challenged guy, like 5'7", barely see over the steering wheel, right? And so when I got this SUV, all of a sudden I thought, well, holy cow, I can see the whole road ahead of me now. I'm up a bit. And then I started to like driving. And that's what turned into me being more and more comfortable and enjoying more and more being out on the road and driving. And so I know it's so silly, but that's the way it worked out. And so I started doing little trips. I'd go to, Springfield, Illinois, which is, a couple hours away. There you go. Went to Louisville, Kentucky, Indianapolis, places that weren't too far away, and, started writing about them online and doing some little video segments and sort of thing. And then I learned that this really is a career for people. Travel writing really is a thing. Although my dad would tell you I'm on vacation every time I go to, these places. I just started. I started meeting other people that did this for a living and realized it is indeed a thing.
Do chambers of commerce, I think that's the plural, collectively, invite you?
Well, it's so funny. Now they do. At first, I had to invite myself. And that's another thing. You don't realize this whole little crazy world that travel writers, travel journalists, if I'm trying to impress somebody, we live in this little bubble, right? And so there are the chambers or the Convention and Visitors Bureaus, and then you have the writers. And we all kind of work together. They obviously want to promote their destinations. And we, obviously, as writers, are looking for material, looking for stories. And so, we kind of work together. They will usually they will host us a lot of times. And so that means, basically they set you up with a hotel or a place to stay and then tour you around their town so that you can write about it for your audience or talk about it on radio or that sort of thing.
And you do videos as well.
I do a lot of video, yeah. In fact, I started out doing video. And then, so the website that I have is billontheroad.com. And it started out really as just a place to do stories on people, places, and things. And then I realized pretty quickly that I needed to pick one. You couldn't really. So I picked places, and that's kind of, again, how this all sort of evolved. So, yes, I do a lot of video, interview local people, highlight whether it's museums or historical sites and that sort of thing. And it's been great. I started in 2013 and still going strong.
Well, let's talk about the book. This is your third travel book, but it's a bit of a departure, pardon the pun, than your first two, Driving Across America and 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die. How would you describe this latest book, Finding the American Dream?
It's a guidebook, but it's also a history book. Of the travel books that I've written, so far it's my favorite, but it was also a whole heck of a lot of work because I profiled about 70 Americans. Most of them you would know. Some of them you wouldn't probably know their names, but I had to take their stories. Most of them are just these really incredible stories, and I had to condense them down to 2 or 4 pages. And so try to take the highlights from their life, try to share a few things that people might not know about them, but then also talk about places where you can go to connect with their legacy. So the criteria for me to include them in this book was that they had to have either a historical site dedicated specifically to them or a museum dedicated specifically to them. Because, the book could have been, 800 pages long, truly. There's so many great people who have found the American dream. But so that was the criteria. And then the cool thing is, so you learn about their story, learn some fun facts about them, but then also I give you a place to actually go. So once you learn about them, you can go to them. So if it's it's Elvis Presley, let's just say, he was one of the ones that you can actually go to his childhood home in Tupelo, Mississippi. Or Tina Turner, with some St. Louis ties there.
Sure.
You can go to the one-room schoolhouse where she learned to sing in Tennessee. So it's taking people back to the places where their dreams began, and then also where their dreams were achieved.
Let's talk about that. Where did you get the idea to highlight these people in the first place? Because it had to spring from somewhere, and I think it's an interesting story like the SUV.
Yeah, well, let's hope. So honestly, the idea came from, I was in Johnny Cash's childhood home in a little town called Dice, Arkansas. It's about 30 minutes north of Memphis, Tennessee. And it was really cool. I got to go to, so the house has been there obviously since the Great Depression, all right? And it had fallen into disrepair, and some folks at Arkansas State University came in and brought it back to life, spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars on it, bringing it back to life to look the way it did when Johnny Cash lived there. So I was invited to go and visit the house as part of a press trip, press experience. And so it ended up that I wasn't actually going to be there when everybody else was there. I was there a day early. So I just decided to drive by and just see the house before it was unveiled with the Cash family and all this and that. And there were some people who were there from the university that were working on it, getting everything ready. And I got out of the car, as I do. I'll talk to anybody. And I walked up and I said, "How you doing?" I said, "Man, I'm supposed to be here tomorrow. I'm really bummed that I'm not going to be able to go in and tour the house." And the guy, some construction guys, are like, "Come on in, come on." So there I am. I'm in the house, even before the Cash family is in there to see all the renovations. And it was so cool. And you saw what he, what it was like when he lived there shortly after the Great Depression, along with his family. And so after I left the house, I'm in the car again, and I'm driving down this, what is a dirt road. It is just think of your favorite country road and just dirt and just, clouds of dust, and it's and the car's rattling because it's not even, and I'm just thinking, holy cow, here's a guy, Johnny Cash, known all the way around the world, and he came from right here. And I started to think about it and just kind of put these little things together and realize that there are many Americans who overcame great odds and obstacles, came from poverty, whatever it may be, and ended up making something of themselves, making a career, just making their dreams come true. And so I started thinking about all of these people and started tracking them down, and it ended up enough for a book. So, yeah.
Finding the American Dream,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And that's great. So it inspired you as well.
Yeah.
I mean, as enthusiastic as you are, you're hoping your readers are too.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote this particular book, it was, me trying to convey that anybody can achieve the American dream. But I started to realize after, just reading it as a reader, it's great, I think, for younger people as well. Because for whatever reason, the last few years, it just seems I hear people say, "Oh, the American dream is dead. Oh, you can't." And I know that's not true because I've traveled all over the United States and I've met people, not just famous people, just regular folks who have worked hard and who have achieved their own dreams, whatever that may be. And so I'm hoping when people read this, again, especially younger people, they see this and they see what all of these people went through. And not all of them had huge obstacles, but many of them did, and they overcame them, and they made something of themselves. So, the idea is that anybody can do it if you work hard, you're willing to take risks, which that's a lot of people don't like to do that, and maybe just a little bit of luck, but the harder you work, the less luck you need.
It's a fear factor, but you do get inspiration. I mean, we've got so many books like that, you're right, most of them did have humble beginnings that you profile, but there were some that, one of them who started late in life, it wasn't Ray Kroc. It was Colonel Sanders. Yeah. Trivia.
Yeah. There's trivia in all of my
Yes, and I'm
books
gonna
too.
get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, he was 65, I believe, when he started Kentucky Fried Chicken, and you can actually go to, again, this is the travel part of it. You can go to Corbin, Kentucky. It's a little town, and you'll see the first restaurant that he had, and you walk in and it's this big open floor plan because Colonel Sanders wanted everybody to be able to see into the kitchen because he was very concerned with cleanliness, and he wanted people to be able to see how clean his kitchen was while he was preparing their meals, and while their meals are being put together. And so you walk in and you can see his kitchen, and then there's still a Kentucky Fried Chicken restaurant right there attached to it, and you see it's Sanders Cafe, big sign still out on the front. So, but yeah, 65, what the heck?
Yeah, and he started a whole new career in,
Yeah.
an empire.
Yeah.
Which is now KFC. We
Yeah,
can't say
that's it.
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah.
That must be a whole nother story. Was there any person or even place that surprised you in any way? And do you have a favorite?
I love when people ask me about my favorites for travel stuff. My favorite place is always the place where I happen to be at a particular point in time. Did I learn anything? Again, back to there
Or
were
surprised you?
there
Anything
were- one of the people that I profiled was Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, and I didn't have a great appreciation of him until a couple of years ago when the documentary "Wonderful Neighbor," A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood came out, and so he was one that so I went to Latrobe, Pennsylvania. That's where Mr. Rogers was from. And Mr. Rogers, if you don't know the whole story, so he was overweight as a kid, was bullied quite a bit, and didn't really have many friends. And it's kind of a sad story. And he started making these puppets, which we all know now from the neighborhood of make-believe and all of that, as when he did his television show. And so, I guess you could say the puppets were his friends, as he was growing up. But you look at this guy, and he ended up changing the lives of millions of young people all over the world, certainly here in the United States, and that really surprised me because I did, just little things you don't know. Everybody's going through something, right? Even somebody that's got the greatest attitude and whatever, we're all going through something, and he was one that was going through something as well, and so he was able to battle back. Defy odds, not worry about people who are picking on him or whatever, and wanted to change the lives of young people, and he did. And so that was to me that was kind of a surprise. I didn't know that he was like that.
Yeah, I love those bits. And in fact, in the book I read that I think the station wanted to do a promotion about him, and they were letting people do a meet and greet, and they expected like 500, and they like 5,000. Am I correct?
Yeah. I think it was Boston. I think it was the Boston
he was based out
PBS
of there,
affiliate.
right.
Yeah, and so it was based out of Pittsburgh. That's where he did the show.
Okay, Pittsburgh. I
and
know.
so-
I didn't read the book.
Well, there was an affiliate, and they said, "Oh, let's have people come out and meet Mr. Rogers," And this was early on, obviously, and so yeah, you're right. They were expecting a few hundred people, and thousands showed up, and he met every single one of them. I got to go to the archives. They were nice enough to let me go into Fred Rogers archives and met some folks there at a school in Pennsylvania where they keep his stuff at a college, and started talking with the person who's in charge of the archive, and she was showing me letters that were written for kids. They saved every single letter, and they said Mr. Rogers responded to every single kid that wrote him every single letter. He hand wrote a letter back to them.
It's interesting as you say that, and I'm thinking, you talked about younger people being more interested in the history and the travel. They won't relate to letters. Everything's going to be virtual and social media and gone with the wind. So that's kind of sad in a way.
It is kind of sad.
Because there's nothing there tangible.
So my first book that I wrote was 100 Things to Do in America Before You Die. And one of the things that I featured in there, the things you should do, is go to Santa Claus, Indiana. There is a little museum. It's the Santa Claus Museum. And they take letters from kids all over the country, and you can write a letter to Santa through the museum and through the city. They have a special postmark. But the thing that I suggest people go and see, they have a display of letters that have come in over the years from kids. And the penmanship from young people back in the day, back when they first started taking these, is immaculate, and it's beautiful handwriting. And then you get to the late 90s and in the 2000s, you think, holy cow, what's happened to these kids? And so, but you're right, the letters are, and it's sad. I used to love writing letters when I was a kid. You'd
All
write to
those dotted
friends, and
lines, and then we progressed.
Danielian handwriting, I think is what they called it. And it was, beautiful, but yeah.
Oh, boy, we sound like old fogies.
I know, gosh,
now.
sorry.
But hey, sadly, I don't think it's really that long ago.
No.
That's the scary part. But technology has changed so quickly in the last 5 years, actually. So speaking of that, you have your website, travel website, BillOnTheRoad.com, correct? .com.
Yeah.
What kind of questions do you get? And where can we find, I guess everything's going to be, all your writings are on your website.
Yeah, so BillOnTheRoad.com, I started that in 2013, and basically I write about the places that I go, the people that I meet, things that I see, and of course some travel tips and ideas. And I'm really lucky. So being in St. Louis, and especially for next year, for 2021 is going to be huge for road trips. It was huge this summer. Just
RVs,
with
weren't RVs a
everything.
big thing?
RVs as well,
Yes.
yeah. And so I'm really fortunate that. So if you were to go on Google right now, and everybody home could try this out, you make a liar out of me, but if you Google road trips from St. Louis, my website is the top rank. I'm #1.
Good for you.
And so people go there and they look and they get hopefully good ideas, suggestions for places to go that aren't too far from St. Louis. But I do travel all over the country, and so I write about those experiences, do a lot of video, take a lot of pictures, obviously, and I try to just, the way that I write, and you've known me a long time, people watching probably don't know this, but I can be kind of sarcastic, and I try to make it fun. Yeah, a tad. And but I try to make it fun for people and try to make it interesting. Road trips are just so great. And again, I didn't learn about this till later in life, but you can learn so much about the country by stopping in small towns or stopping at the fun roadside attractions. And there's nothing exciting about the pandemic, but if there's one thing that is, I think, a positive is getting people back in their car and driving and getting them to stop in places that maybe they wouldn't stop otherwise.
When you said that, I thought the same thing, slowing down.
Yeah.
My dad did that years ago because, frankly, with 4 kids, we all piled together. I don't even think we wore the seatbelts. But the point is, we would just go up the road from Springfield I remember going to Aurora, Illinois to see the Amish. So little things like that, but it's stuck in my memory. As a family, we all went. Yeah. And maybe, are you getting more of those kind of questions from your viewers or readers in terms of affordability, or what are they asking you?
Well, people want, like I said, they want to do the road trips, but they now at least they want to stay a little closer to home. So they're looking for places to go that aren't too far away. And it's not so much that people are avoiding the big cities, but I think people are finally waking up and realizing that, instead of going from point A to point B, there are a lot of things that are in the middle that you can stop and see. And one of the things that I like to highlight on the website and through social media is, roadside attractions. And that's it's just so pure Americana. That we like these goofy things along the side of the highway, whether it's, the world's largest rocking chair or the world's largest easel or whatever. It's just these fun things that people can do as they stop, to stretch their legs or whatever on a long road trip. Just making it fun again, and again, try to take the stress out of a road trip, because it can be stressful if you're driving, 15 hours someplace. Just chill out, stop, see some things along the way, and enjoy every minute.
Well, as we do this interview, we're getting into the holidays, and I did hear a statistic this morning that air travel is up dramatically from last year, and that wasn't even a quarantine time, right. Or COVID we didn't even know what COVID was a year ago. But so people are getting a little claustrophobic, whatever the rules are per state, because that's another thing that you have had to deal with, have you not? Travel, every state's got their different rules. Did it hinder you at all this past year?
Yeah, it's this crazy spider web of rules and regulations, and I have stayed pretty much in the Midwest this year, except earlier in the year I was, I did a few things, but I wouldn't say it's hindered me so much, but you're right. You have to be careful what kind of advice you're giving to people now, because you don't want to tell them, hey, there's this great place you can see in New York. Oh, but by the way, when you get there, you have to quarantine in a hotel for 2 weeks. Nobody's doing that. Right. So trying to get them to places safely, obviously, and outdoor stuff now. Sure. That's huge. If you can find, and you're seeing it in national parks and in state parks and local parks, and where people are going to explore things where they can have some distance, have some space, and be away from folks. And so I think 2021 is going to be a big year. Maybe not early in the year, but by late spring, I think next summer, I think travel is going to be back, and we need it badly. And I have so many friends and colleagues that I've met through the years doing this, and the hotel industry, and people who work for cities and their tourism departments, and they're hurting. They're hurting big time. I talked to somebody in one city the other day that was talking about how just the capacity in hotels, and they said they were up to 5%, which is you need to be at 60% to even break even in the hotel industry, right? And so so they need it. They need people to get back, and if we can get back and we can do it safely, then the sooner the better.
Yeah. Now, you've hosted many a trivia night, and I've heard you do this on the radio as well, but you've hosted many here in St. Louis for different charities or just for fun.
Yeah.
Bill on the Road has done these. But you included it in this particular book, which I thought was a no-brainer for you. So was this something fun for you to do?
Trivia? You're right.
To include it in the book.
Yeah, so all of my books have trivia.
Oh, sorry about that.
No, it's okay. No, they all have trivia, but what's cool is that books like these. People, you mentioned RVs earlier, but
Yes.
not only RV. People buy them, they throw them in the glove compartment, and they have them when they're out traveling. They all have an index, so wherever you are, you can go, oh, wait, what did Bill say that I should do in this town? But people, use it for, passing time while they're driving. And hopefully you should, if you're driving by yourself, maybe don't do the trivia. But if you got somebody in the car with you, then it kills some time and spurs some conversations. And I have heard from a lot of people who will do that, and they're like, man, we had so much fun doing the trivia and the book. So that's why I did it, just a little extra bonus.
But you do those well, and you host them well. All right, let's check your memory here. I'm going to do a little trivia with you. So,
Oh, boy.
yes, this is very apropos here with where we are in these times.
Okay.
So this is back to 1973. Store shelves, you write here, were emptied nationally as consumers hoarded this household product after Johnny Carson, the late-night talk show host, joked that there was a shortage of this item. And we're seeing this again as we speak.
Toilet paper.
Toilet paper.
And I actually watched that episode not too long ago. You can see it on YouTube, and he makes the joke. And I believe if my memory serves me correct, he had to come back on the next night or a couple of days and tell everyone it was just a joke, a total joke, because the stores everywhere across the country were short on toilet paper because they heard Johnny Carson saying that there was a shortage. So they thought, but you're
Carson
right,
or COVID?
Yeah,
Carson
it comes back. Yeah, comes back.
That's crazy. I saw that and went, what? All right, here's another one that's a little bit local. So the original Clydesdales were a gift to August Busch to celebrate what?
Prohibition.
Prohibition.
The end of
yes.
Prohibition. Yeah.
You do a profile Adolphus Busch, who was the German immigrant who came over and founded Anheuser-Busch. I guess Bush was first.
Yeah, there are a lot of people in the book that are from Missouri, and that was
Yes.
not intentional.
Yeah.
It just so happened to be that way. One of the road trip ideas that I promote on my website is the Missouri, the way of the American genius. I don't know if you've done that trip or not, but so it starts in Hannibal or St. Joseph, depending on where you are in the state. And you go down the highway, I think it's 36, and you can see Walt Disney's hometown. You see Mark Twain's hometown. You see the town where J.C. Penney grew up. You see where the Pony Express began. You see where sliced bread started. And there's all of these things all up and down that highway right here in Missouri. Yeah. And so there are a lot of well-known Americans that started right here in our state.
I love it. And then lastly, this one was just a little bit of trivia because you do other celebrities. Oh, hope I didn't lose it. Oh, here we go. And this shocked me. How many number one hit songs has Bruce Springsteen had?
I think it's 0.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, what? Because there's such a cult following, but I thought that was interesting. But I love that kind of stuff, and it is a great way to pass the time. I love that you've included that in all your books.
Thanks.
The majority of the people and places in your book we can easily get to, as you mentioned earlier, to St. Louis by car. Do you have your sights set on a next destination as we get into a new year?
Like where I'm going next?
Yes,
It's just
yes.
I'm probably going. It's funny. I'm going to Las Vegas. And I have never been to Las Vegas, which is the craziest thing. I know as a kid, we went to a couple of spots, went to Reno, and but I've never been to Las Vegas. So I got a friend that's going to meet me out there. We're going to go to Vegas and spend a few days doing some stuff. But, I spend a lot of time going to the places where a lot of people don't go. Right. Or don't go enough, I guess. And so, yeah, some of these places, that everybody's been to, I haven't gone. Because I'm busy highlighting all of the, small towns or the, different counties or whatever where people might not be on their radar. So Las Vegas, and then I think I'm doing a couple of stops in Florida. So got to get out of the cold St. Louis weather.
Smart move.
Yeah.
But you drive everywhere. You don't ever fly, do you? Or rarely?
Well, I'm not afraid to fly, but
Right.
I don't. I just always tell people I think it's disingenuous for me to hop on a plane when I tell them to take a road trip.
Yep.
So there are a few occasions over the years where a city has offered to fly me in to do a story or whatever, and I've certainly taken advantage of that. But generally speaking, no, I drive everywhere. And usually by myself. Once in a while, I'll take my dad along for a road trip, but usually I'm solo. I'm driving out there meeting America.
Right. And that's nice. And I see your dad with you a lot. And for those who don't know, you have quite a dry wit, which is really fun because you make it fun. You make it pleasurable, and you're very good at describing everything. Where can we get the book?
So you can go to billontheroad.com.
Okay.
That's the place I would prefer you go to. Billontheroad.com. I've got all of my books there for people who love to travel, or you know somebody that's traveling. Or here's another thing, Victoria: people who are getting ready to retire. I hear this a lot. People who they've worked hard all their life. All they want to do now is travel around the country and see things that they weren't able to when they. And I get a lot of people who are in that boat, and they're like, "We need ideas. We need ideas to go out and try." So those types of folks like the book. If you have to, you can go to Amazon. I don't like Amazon so much. I'd rather you go to billontheroad.com and get them that way.
Speaking of that, I want to give a shout out to St. Louis's own Reedy Press because they
Yeah.
published all 3 books, correct?
Two of the
and
ones.
this one
yeah.
as well.
They
Yes,
did.
I
Yeah,
saw
they're
them on
great,
here.
and they're right here in St. Louis. Yeah.
So Reedy Press, thank you. And the book is Finding the American Dream, a guided tour of places where Americans changed history. Bill Clevlen, thank you so much for coming into our studios.
Thank you. Good to be here.